Steve, I think this Matt Mitrione has a lot of talent now. He's an interesting guy, kind of, space cadet type style. But I think if he ever puts it together, he's got a lot of ability and can do some very good things. Kimbo's making tremendous progress. I mean, it shows what working with a real camp will do. He's with ATT, American Top Team, and he's making, very, very good progress. Just seeing him roll today and work out, you could see the difference in him. I'm not saying that he's ready to fight the elite guys in the division yet, but certainly from where he was in his Elite XC days when he was a complete joke to where he is now, where he's a legitimate quality fighter. He's learning. He's a well-rounded MMA guy. He's still got a lot to learn. He's still got a long way to go, so I don't mean to have anybody say that he's ready for the pound-for-pound top 10 or even top 10 rated fighters, but he's making progress and he's good. So I think that they've surrounded Lyoto and Shogun with some good fights, and I think that they're helping as best they can push the pay-per-view with that.
Dave Koken, your reaction. Kimbo Slice is, I sort of quote you in the past saying he will never be a good fighter. He has no talent.
I'm pretty much sticking with that. I think he can become a low-level journeyman.
You just had an MMA expert tell you that he's becoming well-rounded.
I know. I'm going to disagree. I just don't. Let me put it this way: if he does, then I don't think it speaks well for the overall quality of talent in the sport. I think a guy that at that age, for him to even with no experience, for him to be able to get to that level would not speak well for the depth of the quality fighters in the sport.
Well, Dave, one thing I'll say about Kimbo, and here's what you have to realize. I mean, the guy was a terrific athlete. Probably would have been a Division I football player had he not suffered a serious injury. He was an all-state linebacker in Florida, was really a highly regarded. University of Miami looked like they wanted to sign him to play for them back in '92. He got injured, lost a scholarship, wasn't able to play football anymore. But he, being an all-state linebacker in Florida and being recruited by Division I, that, not to say that you're the greatest athlete of all time, but you have to be a good player. So this guy, start with the fact that he has some athletic ability. Now he's getting out there and he's training with one of the best training camps. It's like anybody that trains as a good athlete and would work with Freddie Roach in boxing. You're going to make a lot of improvements. Kimbo, is a guy that has good athletic ability. He's being trained in these various disciplines by the best coaches that are out there. Certainly ATT is on a par with anybody. I'm not saying they're the best camp, but they are certainly, there's nobody that's far ahead of them. So they're one of the best ones, and I think it makes a big difference for them.
I think part of my stance is that, and I think boxing is in the same category. I think the bigger athletes just don't gravitate to those sports. They have a wide variety of sports they can choose from, and I think that boxing and MMA at the bigger weights. I want to clarify that because I think at the smaller weights it's a completely different story. But at the bigger weights, I think they get leftovers, and that's why the heavyweight division in boxing stinks. And I think the biggest level in MMA, I'm shaky on it. Let's put it that way.
Well, the quality of college wrestling is very high, and the quality of Olympic wrestling is high, and they're getting a lot of those guys coming into MMA that are heavyweights. And so those guys, Dave, they can transition into it. They have the wrestling base. We see it with Shane Carvin. We see it with Brock Lesnar. There are some other guys there. They are athletes. They have one of the martial arts as a base, wrestling, and they can go. So if you look at the UFC's division, 5 years ago it was horrendous. It was as bad as boxing is now. Maybe worse. But if you look at the UFC's division now, Brock Lesnar, Shane Carwin, Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez, there are a lot of not only good fighters up there, and not relative to each other, but just relative to the entire field. But they're terrific athletes in terrific condition.
Right.
I would hope that boxing could someday get close to that kind of talent and depth.
Yeah. My only argument to that would be, but making my argument for me would be the fact that, Lesnar is a fabulous athlete. But, it just, to me, speaks volumes about the lack of depth at that level when he's the world champion after 3 fights.
Why does that? We've explained a million times. The guy was a borderline Olympic heavyweight wrestler. Wrestling is a huge element in the sport. Right.
But what I'm saying is, if there was ample depth in the division, he would have had to climb over some contenders to get to that.
Well, Dave,
I do, however, buy into your assessment that because it is starting to attract a lot of college wrestlers, I think that on the MMA side, that division is going to grow into something really viable as time goes on. And so I do buy into that. On the boxing thing, I don't think there's much they can do about it.
And let me just take your answer, what you said before about Brock Lesnar, and let me just parse that a little bit, because if you say that getting the championship in his fourth fight, proves that there's not a lot of quality talent in the division, I would say, well, why did the Minnesota Vikings keep Brock Lesnar, who hadn't played football since, I think, his sophomore year in high school? Why did they keep him till the final cut, nearly let him make their team, and then when they decided to cut him, wanted to send him to NFL Europe? It was because the guy is a world-class athlete, not because there's a lack of good linemen in the NFL. It was because they said, you know what, this guy is so athletically gifted that we want to have him part of our organization because he could develop into something. Lesnar had been traveling the world with the WWE, and he was tired of it, decided he wanted no part of NFL Europe, and he bailed. But, I think that's a very apt comparison.
Good discussion. I like it.
Hey, Kev, we appreciate it. Enjoy your time in Montreal. For MMA fans out there, you can find Kev and I speaking on Skype over the next couple of days. We'll have more hardcore preview of the event, and that'll be up on ESPN Radio 1100 Facebook, Kevin's Facebook, Dave and myself. You want to follow us on Facebook, and it'll be up on the Yahoo MMA blog as well, cagewriter.com. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, guys. See you.
There you go, Kevin Ioli.